You're listening to Best Forevers, a podcast for kindred spirits, a podcast that encourages you to love more on your friends and to further consider the issues that plague friendships. I'm Alysa Lucas, and I am the worst. Okay, I'm probably not the actual worst, but do you ever have those thoughts and feelings that infiltrate your mind, heart, and world around you? Today, I'd like to explore why we can feel like a bad friend and what we might be able to do about it. Some folks may feel like a bad friend here or there, it's fleeting or temporary, while others may have spent their whole life feeling like they're a bad friend and not worthy of friends. So let's talk about the reasons why we might feel this way, whether it is a short term or long term feeling, and some of the steps that we might be able to take to deal with these issues in our world. So the first one is, we just got to get this one right out there, right out the gate. Some of us may be feeling like a bad friend now because gestures vaguely to everything. Seriously, we're still experiencing a global pandemic and what some might call a political pandemic. We're traumatized, burned out, stressed, overwhelmed, sad, raging. Insert any and all feelings of dread and exhaustion. We're tired. We might be too tired to friend or too tired to reach out to our friends, even though we might desperately want to see them and talk to them after so many months of isolation. Some folks may be limiting physical contact with friends because of the global pandemic, which may mean they're missing out on those who continue to have weddings, baby showers, and big birthday parties like the 30th or the 21st or the 40th or whatever. Even though this is for safety and health, it can still make us feel really bad. It can make us feel bad that we're not there for our friends during these important moments and that we have to weigh our decisions, right? Safety over friendship. And so there's probably some feelings that we're all having that we might be missing out on stuff or that we're just too tired to even pick up the phone and say, hey. So, what do we do in a situation like this? The first thing is we need to extend grace to ourselves and to others. We're all going through some of the same shiz, some of which might be similar, some which might be different, but it's a tough time for everyone in many aspects of life. So, work is exhausting, home is exhausting, Twitter is exhausting, the news is exhausting. It's just all exhausting. So, maybe besides grace, one of the things we can do is that ruminating and ranting and commiserating with a friend might be a way to cope. Even if it's a meme exchange, like you send funny memes or funny gifs about how you're feeling, or a quick phone call of, guess how messed up this is today? And, some of that is just briefly checking in and saying, like, we all know what's going on right now and it's hard, and still am about you as a friend and I hope you want to be my friend, but it's just everything's so hard, so let's cope with this uh just nonsense together, right? And maybe raving and ranting keeps you specifically in negative space. I enjoy it, but that doesn't mean everyone else does. So instead of like the rant sesh, you could do the overcome sesh together, right? Positive memes and quotes. You could do gratitude texts or mini challenges that you can talk about, right? Doing sit ups, push ups, for example, maybe going for a walk and talking about things, something that might make us feel better about what's going on in the world, like getting out there and just moving, being in nature. Here in Michigan, I'm starting to feel that fall weather come in, and that really excites me. So, getting out there to see the nature and chatting with a friend, whether it be about the rants or the positive stuff. But the idea is that we're all going through something that's pretty traumatizing right now. And I think a whole lot of grace goes a whole lot of way, right? And that there might be some ways that you can friend together to cope with the situation. So if there's some things that you're doing to cope with the pandemic and the world and all the nonsense, and you're doing that with your friend, let me know what it is. You can tweet at me, Instagram me, Facebook me, email me, friends with Alysa. That's where I'm at. And I definitely want to hear. Maybe I need to take on some of your suggestions too. Like, what are some of the ways that you rant? What are some of the ways that you do more of like a positive sesh? We want to know all of these things because since we're all going through this, some people might have figured out a few things that work for them, and other people are still trying to do the figuring out. Sometimes, okay, so here we go. Second reason why we might feel like a bad friend. Sometimes we feel like bad friends because we've got really annoying, aggressive, but passive friends, and they're called anxiety and depression. Ugh. It's like, why are you here? If there was a review for friends like Yelp or something, I give anxiety and depression 2 thumbs down each, right? And then when I have my thumbs down, I would say, boo, y'all suck. Hated it, right? A little callback to In Living Color, right? They really make themselves comfy in your life when you least expect it or you have no time for the nonsense. And I don't think that there are folks who are alone here, that many people might be experiencing anxiety and depression, which makes it difficult to be a bad friend. So these posts are older, but I found a link to Reddit that you can find in my show notes. And I think is sort of illustrates how people might be feeling. So this was posted by Tiger Lily X01, and it was 4 years ago, but I still think it resonates today. This person says, sometimes I feel like a bad friend because I can't keep up with people. I made some people worry for me when I often don't reply for a week or more. Sometimes my arms feel too tired to even type. My depression makes me too tired and sad to do anything. An online friend was visiting my city and I was too anxious to meet her. I haven't responded to my other friend in 6 months and finally did yesterday. I was so glad there were no hard feelings. My online friend introduced me to his other friends recently, and I thought it went well. But then I started getting these negative thoughts that I'm not really cared about by them or that they're annoyed by me. It has been nearly a week since I last spoke to them. So far, they haven't asked where I was, and I'm afraid to go back. I'm afraid to get close to people because of them getting tired of me or dislike me when they really get to know me. I try to keep a distance and not get attached like before. Maybe I'm not cut out for friends with such low self esteem and anxiety. So another response on this Reddit was, I felt like a bad friend. Okay, this is by Rose Wonderland. It says, I felt like a bad friend most of my life, and I was never really anyone's closest friend. I've had some bad experiences as elementary school, and I always blame myself for friendships that ended badly. So I often didn't know if I wanted to try making new close friendships and see my friends often, or just save the energy pretending to be happy and going out cost me. One thing that really changed my current friendships for the better was I started being more honest about my depression. I still don't tell all the details, and I don't expect my friends to quote fix me. I go to therapy to help me fix myself because that would be too much pressure on them. But I am more honest and just tell them when I want more or less contact. If you can be honest and say I don't feel so good lately, and it'd be great if we could spend more time together, or I feel a little overwhelmed lately. I still like to see you guys, but maybe for coffee or ordering pizza instead of going out. Your friends should be understanding, and you can build stronger, deeper friendships doing more calm things. When you tell your friends about how you feel, they often see you as honest and may feel like they can be more honest with you too. And in my experience, good friendships built on trust and honesty are more important and last longer than the ones built on fun and action. So there are other people even 4 years ago, 4 months ago, 4 minutes ago, 4 minutes from now, 4 months from now, 4 years from now, that those of us who experience anxiety and depression can make us feel like we're a bad friend. And so those two passive aggressive friends, anxiety and depression, they really put some ugly thoughts and feelings and lies in our head, right? It can make it difficult. And so recently I came across this article from themighty.com, and it is curated by Juliet V, and it's from March 2018, and it talks about anxiety habits that make people feel like a bad friend. And so they had people write in and indicate sort of their experience. So I'm going to share a couple of those with you. And again, you can find this article in show notes as well. So this individual named Lynn K said, I literally isolate myself and I have a hard time talking to friends or responding back. I avoid everyone. Makes me feel horrible. I am a great friend, but I just rather avoid everything. I can't make conversation for the life of me, so I just stay inside 24/7. So Leisha K said, my anxiety makes me lash out and people think I'm actually mad at them, whereas anxiety is what came out. I don't like people helping and cleaning my home. My anxiety likes a dirty sink so I can frantically clean to easy it. And so people end up pushed away even more than I liked, and it ends up helping depression kick in. Quote, crazy cycle. So other people indicated, like Bree H, I cancel plans I've made because I was too anxious or exhausted. This makes me feel guilty and like a bad friend, as sometimes they don't understand my anxiety. Susan P says, when my anxiety is really bad or I have felt stressed out, I won't answer phone calls and I'm slower to respond to texts. It's not that I don't want to stay in touch. It's just that I need my space and I'm feeling overwhelmed. So you can see that a lot of people might be experiencing this and then because of it feel like a bad friend. And sometimes it's just the anxiety and depression talk. And so it's more like, get those lies out of my head, right? So like, get out of here, anxiety and depression. And, it's not always that easy. And sometimes for me, I like to just sit in that feeling like the individual that said I like a dirty sink so that I can frantically clean it. Well, I have to say that I don't resonate with the part of wanting to clean my dishes because dishes are the worst. But sometimes I just like to sit in that feeling, or that getting through the feeling makes me feel better when I can find the way to maybe come out of sort of like the depression cocoon that I'm in. And, for me, that's been more recently upping my anti-depression meds. And so, basically, there are things that we can do, and sometimes it might take a little bit longer to do things about anxiety and depression, making us feel like bad friends. So, one of the things that makes me feel better is that when I am not going through an anxiety or depression spell, that I can talk more clearly about how I'm feeling or what I do feel like sometimes. So, if something does happen, like I need to cancel plans or I need to like skip a few text messages and come back, that my friends will understand that they'll understand that I'll pick up when I feel better, or that we can reschedule those plans for later, and that I can do the same for them. If they need that space, give it to them, and when they're ready to come back, they're ready. So the other thing to think about is, and this is easier said than done, said the person who does not have all the answers. One of the things is that also when thinking about implementing tools, it's like, well, if I knew how to do that, I wouldn't have anxiety and depression causing these problems for me. I wouldn't feel like a bad friend. So in some cases, it might mean we need to review our meds like I did. So I went to the doctor, or it might be scheduling a therapy appointment or increasing therapy for that time. And another article from the Mighty provides ways in which to manage anxiety you're experiencing right now. And so in this particular article, they curated just different ways in which people have found to help manage their anxiety. And so just to share a couple, so Rachel C says the 5 4 3 2 1 grounding technique. My therapist just tasked me with this. Name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can touch, feel, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. You can do in any order and number. Sarah S says this might sound silly, but I made a happy place Instagram account. The only pictures I post are pictures that make me smile. And I only follow accounts with cute animals, inspirational quotes, pretty landscapes, and other happy things. I'm pretty sure I follow every last corgi on social media. Oh gosh, yeah. The animal accounts make me really happy. So Sarah says, continuing with Sarah, says, whenever I need to, I can scroll through some adorable pictures and remind myself of good memories. I try to slow down my breath with every scroll and put headphones in just to tune out some of the background noise. My daughter likes it too. And we started taking little Instagram breaks during homework study time. Another person said that they use the Headspace app, and another said that they knit, while another individual says they use a fidget cube. And Caroline L says, I sing to myself, every little thing is going to be all right, over and over until I believe it. Other people have discovered weighted blankets, keeping change in pocket to use as a grounding technique. there's a number of things that people can do, and people have come up with things that work for them. And it might not work for everyone else, but it has worked for them. So it's like maybe trying some of these things out. Or again, if you figured out some ways or techniques that have helped you that we can share with others, that would be great as well. So feel free to contact me and let me know. So I would say, thinking about anxiety, depression, if you feel comfortable doing so, communicate with that friend and saying, I'm feeling anxious tonight, so I'm going to take tonight and tomorrow off. I'll check back in soon. And then if you have the wherewithal, set an alarm, again, if you can, to do that check in a day or two. So there might be some little steps that we can take to make ourselves feel better with anxiety and depression, and realize that it's the anxiety and depression talking, that we're not bad friends. And that a lot of times our friends might be going through the same things and they do get it. Maybe not everyone, but a lot of our friends will get it. So the third reason why we might feel like we're a bad friend comes down to maybe an experience at being and having friends. So I read this really interesting March 2020 article on medium.com by Shannon Ashley entitled, "I'm a Terrible Friend." In this article, she writes about her foundation of friendship being shaky or non existent based on her childhood. She says, quote, "I was raised in a dysfunctional single parent home where we didn't bring friends home from school because we lived in apartments on, quote, the wrong side of the town. My mother constantly coached me to protect family secrets as if they were a matter of life and death. If anybody knew that we were on welfare, they would think I was trash. My mom first gave me that warning in second grade. And then when I was in third grade, she constantly reminded me that people think I was a freak if they knew why she left my father, because she said she caught him molesting my older sister. Looking back at my childhood, I realized that nobody ever showed me how to have friends or how to be one myself. If anything, I was coached to hold anyone and everyone at a distance. Most of my heartbreak as a kid revolved around my inability to break through social walls I didn't understand. It's not that I didn't have friends, but they were by default shallow or temporary connections. We rarely ever had a car. My mom was incredibly strict letting me leave our home. So spending time with friends outside of school or work was often difficult, if not impossible. Of course, it didn't help that I was on the spectrum of autism, but undiagnosed. I mimicked appropriate behavior as best as I could, behaved like I thought I was supposed to, but habitually seemed to come up short. As a result, I missed out on plenty of quintessential experiences as a child and teen without grasping the depth of what I was missing. So she describes it as a mysterious thing that, friendship is a luxury and not everyone might be able to have friends. And that sometimes she felt like we're supposed to like collect friends. And so that certainly can feel like not having that experience of having friends and being a friend in childhood can make it difficult to make those connections now. She also shared how her borderline personality disorder and, of course, as she mentioned, the undiagnosed autism impacted her ability to have friends. Quote, "Many of us want to be good friends even when we suck at it." So this is difficult because it's if you're missing a foundation, then to me, as a metaphor, I think like it's like trying to go into a high level math class without having any math classes beforehand, or having bad experiences with math, or maybe not having teachers that worked for you for math, or not getting tutoring in math. It just feels like you're trying to do something without having that, clocking some hours, like trying to run a marathon without building up the miles before you do so. And so certainly I am not an expert in borderline personality or autism, but there are things that make it difficult to feel like you can be a good friend if that experience was never there for you. Right. And so that seems like what to do here. Right. Certainly, there can be ways in which to obtain help and seeing a therapist to help work through the differences or that you might experience in friendship because of borderline personality or because of autism, and those folks being able to really help and maybe come up with some solutions that would be personalized for people who've had such experiences. She talks about making a friend, which was what she described as out of kindness of the other person, helping her and her daughter when they didn't have a car, taking her to places where they could do things with the kids, and then having companionship there. So, talking about having these experiences later in life, and that she ends the article indicating, quote, so I'm under no illusions that my funeral is going to be filled with folks talking about what an incredible friend I was, how much they loved me and how much I loved them in turn. At nearly 40, I'm still awkward about cultivating long term relationships. She continues, but later it says, I'm a lot like a tortoise. I retreat inside myself. I am slow. If I don't retreat into my hard shell, I risk too much pain. Where other folks are energized by filling their calendars with meetings or calls and attacking their goals in a strategic but bustling way, I've learned that it requires a seemingly exorbitant amount of alone time and space just to function on a basic level. I need to take my time in ways that don't mesh well with other people. And so I think what's interesting is that she talks about that, this was her foundation. This has been her experience, that she has learned in life that, maybe we should have funerals full of friends that love us so much, and we should have all these appointments and going out, and this is how to friend, and we should have lots of friends and we should collect friends. But what she's doing is discovering that for herself, that again, like a lot of us think about, we can't pour from an empty cup. And for her, she needs to be that tortoise, right? And although that might not mesh well with everyone, it might mesh with some other tortoises, right? Like there's got to be some tortoises out there. And she says that she's learning, and I want to believe that I can get better about filling my cup and being there for others. I also want to admit that we all drop some balls along the way. I wonder if there's room to struggle with friendship and still be a kind person. I like to think that there is. So I think that, there's so much more to this article. Again, you can find it in show notes. I found it to be really interesting because it's trying to understand how other people's friendships work, or how they might not work, or what skills we might assume that people have. Even as someone, I say all the time, like I came out of the womb looking for friends, and that was something that I liked, that I wanted, but that's not the case for everyone. And so let's understand more of folks that might have some difficulties in making those connections, or that they need to be that tortoise. And if we understand our friends, we can accept our friends, and we can be kind to our friends, and we can understand that, as she said, that I want to be a good friend, I might just suck at it, right? So, do we have room for sucky friends? Some people might say no, and given my series on breaking up with friends, that, some people might see that as a reason to end a friendship. But we have to assume that not everyone is like us. Like we have to get out there and understand that there are great things that we could be missing from our tortoise friends, to use her reference, right? So I think there, for folks who have friends that might be inexperienced, there is extending that grace and giving them that time to tortoise. And if you are that tortoise, that, much like in this article um, by Shannon Ashley, that it's a journey, and it's a process, and it's learning and accepting who we are, and that there might be some ways in which we can get help to accept that, if that's what you want to do. The next reason why we might think that we're bad at being friends is we're consumed with perfection. And this is not just autobiographical, right? So several years ago, and I mean, when I say several, I don't know if I'm talking 5, 10, or 15, but at some point it didn't exist, and then it did. And that is the term Pinterest mom. That was coined to reflect moms that seemingly truly have all their shiz together at all times, and that everything seems perfect. The kids have these cool looking lunches with super artistic notes included, and the moms never have a hair out of place. They never miss a pickup or a drop off, and somehow still have time to make a nutritious home cooked meal. Like, amazing. And okay, I don't have kids, but there's still something that resonates with me here, whether thinking about being a student or now as a teacher, as a podcaster, as a friend, as a human. Like, who are these people who have everything together? Either tell us your secrets or stop your lies, right? Like, that might be what we need to do. So maybe it's not a Pinterest mom, but instead we're dealing with an Instagram friend, right? Where post stories and reels show a life filled with friends and great times. And here I am sitting at home on the 12th season of CSI, eating Annie's cheddar bunnies, crackers, and scrolling said posts on Instagram. And as a reminder, social media can make others' lives look perfect. And then we might experience, FOMO, the fear of missing out, envy, and yearning to have something similar in our own lives. But there's no such thing as being or having a perfect friend. And we can certainly talk with our friends, text them, send them TikToks and meme, and even have waffles without it becoming a photo shoot for the gram. So, what can we do in these situations? Because, like, sometimes it's like, social media is telling us something that we believe that's not perhaps true. So the first thing we can do is sign off social media. It's okay to take breaks and avoid all the doom scrolling, or do like that woman suggested on the Mighty article and create a happy space on Pinterest so you can look at that and feel better about just things that make you happy, right? Reminders of yourself and who you are, or be thoughtful about what you post on Instagram, right? Like, or just remember that not everything is accurate. It's not complete. It only shows certain things. We just have to remember that life is filtered through the lens of Instagram, and it's not exactly the life people have, how good their relationships actually are, or how much fun they're having. It's all going to be filtered through sort of these like party glasses, right? Like, woo! So for me, I do like to take photos, but I have to remember that not everything has to be documented or posted, or I can document it, but I don't need to turn it into, five stories on Instagram. So, one of the things we could also do is like, if we feel like we're sitting at home and we're not doing anything, and really what scrolling on Instagram does for us is remind us of the things that we're not doing. Maybe we don't exactly want to do what they're doing or have the life that they have, but we do want to do something. We'll make a list of those somethings. Like, it's fall, right? Like, do you want to go to like the pumpkin patch? Do you want to get apple cider donuts? Like, yes, please, right? Make a list of the things you want to do, whether they're in person, online, whatever the case is, and then invite a friend out to do it. Go for having time together or making connection, and not about being perfect and about it being documented. And so that leads to the final reason that we might feel like we're being a bad friend. So, okay, maybe we feel like a bad friend because we're feeling guilty about something that we said or did. Essentially, maybe in an interaction, we were a bad friend. But that doesn't mean we're completely or wholly bad people or friends. Sometimes we have moments. Sometimes it's anxiety lashing out. Sometimes it's depression. Sometimes it might be a misunderstanding of what's happening in the interaction, and it can just be the stress of the pandemic, thinking about the other reasons here, right? And so we make mistakes. And as Shannon Ashley mentioned in her article about her quote unquote being a terrible friend, is that we all drop balls at sometimes, right? We're juggling all these things in the air. Sometimes we make mistakes. Sometimes uh, it just doesn't go the way that we planned. And so we just may need to admit when we're wrong, and then thoughtfully and sincerely apologize for what happened. And if you have this feeling of guilt and you can't pinpoint what it might be, maybe we need to do an assessment to determine if maybe we have done something that could be perceived as inappropriate or rude. Or maybe it's just, if we're feeling guilt, maybe it is just simply, going back to any of these other reasons and going, I haven't been in contact. I wasn't able to go to their baby shower, right? Like, I am trying to be this perfect thing, but I can't be. I don't know how to friend in this situation. It's the depression talking that we might feel guilty. And so maybe it is just like a sign to you, if it's not truly a conflict that happened or something that happened that you might need to apologize for. I think what this could mean is that maybe that's a sign that you are wanting to reach out to your friends and you haven't yet. Either you haven't come to that realization yet, Maybe the depression is not allowing you to yet. And maybe it's just going, okay, let me open my calendar or open my reminders or alarms and put in a day and write in, how am I feeling today? Am I feeling well enough to contact whoever that friend is? And then see how you feel that day and then try it. So I think what to do with feeling guilty is, first off, if there's something that you've done, it's the true, honest, sincere, and not just like sorry, like like a 6-year-old kid who's being forced to say sorry. Sorry. It's like, no, I apologize, and here's why, right? It is a thoughtful apology because this is a friend. And if it's a friend you want to keep and you've done something and now you're feeling guilty, well, that might also be a sign to think about, like, why did that happen? And if there's anything you can do to maybe work on or improve, that could be something that could come from it. Maybe it's a conversation to figure out boundaries, or just have a conversation for clarity with friends, and that can be helpful. If you're feeling guilty but you can't pinpoint it, you might assess it. Maybe there is something that happened, or you can talk to your friend about it. Like, I'm feeling like I'm missing something, and I don't know what it is, and I need some help here. And then going there, and which might lead to some ruminating, some perhaps conversation, and again, perhaps an apology. And then that assessment could be, is it just that I'm missing my friends and I know that I haven't been in contact? And that's where you can determine if it's like, hey, it's an immediate reach out. Hey, what's up? Hey, what's up? 3 words in a text. Is that something you can handle today? Or, like I said, can you say, I'm not feeling it now, but maybe on Saturday at 2, I'm going to see how I feel. I'm going to put an alarm on my phone. And if I'm feeling okay, I'm going to reach out. Right. So there are little things we can do to perhaps remind ourselves that sometimes there are lies in our head. Sometimes we might not have the tools. Sometimes we are too overwhelmed, and sometimes, we're just trying too hard to be something that no one can be, or we're trying to pinpoint why we feel guilty, and that any of these things can help us understand what might be going on, what we might need to work on. And working on it might just be like, stop lying to me, anxiety, or going to learn about some methods to help, build friendships, right? So, my point is this: we often feel like we're a bad friend, and that might not be the case. There might be something else that's going on here. And these are just 5 super relatable, valid reasons why we might feel that way. There's probably so many more, and so many tips and tricks and things that you've done to remind yourself that you are not a bad friend. Or in that case where you're like, I am being a bad friend, what do I do? Right. But this is, most often, it's a moment, it's a negative thought, it is a lack of a tool. And so, friends, we have to remember that there are other things that do get in the way of friendship, and we should give ourselves that grace. Let's not be so hard on ourselves. Give ourselves some time and we can figure it out. And, it can help us figure out, a lot of times it might be that friend. It might be an online friend. It might be a childhood friend. It might be a work friend. It might be a neighbor friend. It might just be someone you also call a sister or a mother, right? There's other ways, or maybe it's like, I don't necessarily call them friend, but my therapist can help, right? Like, so we got to reach out maybe to those people when we need that help. So, friends, I want to hear, did I miss any reasons? Do you resonate with any of these reasons? Do you have moments where you feel like a bad friend? And so, what I'd like to do is curate these ideas from listeners and other folks on social media so that we can realize that this is probably a common feeling, and that most often we might not be right in that feeling. It might be a distorted view because we're experiencing anxiety. So, find me online. I am friendswalysa at twitter.com, and then Friends with Alysa on Facebook and Instagram and Gmail and web and TikTok. And what you can do is let me know when you hashtag felt like a bad friend, and tag me in it, use that hashtag. Let's curate some commiseration, ranting, raving, and positive thoughts about how we can make it through. So until next time, friends, consider if you're actually a bad friend, because I'm going to tell you, most likely you're not. Thanks for listening to Best Forevers. If you like what you hear, be sure to subscribe, rate, review, and of course, share with a friend. Please be sure to follow Best Forevers on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Best Forevers Pod, and I'm at Dr. Alysa Lucas on Twitter. You can always find the podcast webpage for more information at bestforeverspod.com, and share your stories of friendship by emailing me at bestforeverspod@gmail.com. And if you'd like to support the movement to love on our friends more, check out the podcast on patreon.com/bestforeverspod. Now, friends, check out this recommended podcast that you must get in your ear holes immediately.